So I wanted to get us kicked off with a question on the big picture. What does DGS do in terms of helping startups fit into the ecosystem, especially those companies that are working on innovative ideas? And how can they get plugged in?
So great question. So Department of General Services, we have under my purview the Office of State Procurement, and what we do is we do the contracting for the state. So we as a state spend somewhere in the neighborhood of around $8 billion a year on goods and services. A lot of that is what we do is a lot of outreach and collaboration to make sure that small, minority, women, veteran-owned businesses have a seat at the table, right? They're participating in contracts. A lot of these contracts that we're putting out there, whether it's IT services, construction, consulting services, they're too large for smaller firms to bid on, right? So you got these large national firms, the Accentures of the world, the EY, the Deloittes of the world bidding on them. But a lot of these components of those are smaller startups, can be subcontractors underneath those. So we build up the subcontracting community through different initiatives. And a lot of what we do is we put minority and veteran business goals on a lot of our contracting. And what that means is, let's say we have a 30% goal. That means 30% of this contract spend on this contract, the dollars being spent, must be to MBE certified firms that are certified by the state of Maryland to be a minority business. The other thing we're doing innovative is we're collaborating to make sure that we dedicate contracts to be small business reserve, meaning you must be a small business to bid on this contract. The larger firms are not allowed to bid on this contract. That traditionally has been between $50 and $500,000 contracts. We just passed legislation last week to increase that from $0 to $1 million. So that's what it will be going into effect this year. Small business reserve contract. So, is it okay to do a plug here? So if you're a startup, if you're a small business, once you do the basics, like the 0 to step 1 is like registering your business, right? Opening a bank account, doing the whole 9 yards there, right? Just getting registered with the Maryland State Department of Assessment and Taxation to be an LLC or incorporation, whatever you're doing. That's like step 0. The next step is to register on eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. If you go to dgs.maryland.gov, Maryland spelled out, that is our website. You can go to eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. That's our website. On there, you can register your business to do business with the state of Maryland. What you can also do there when they're on the website is click to be a small business reserve. And within a very short period of time, I'm talking just a couple of days, maybe less than that, we will get you certified as a small business as long as you meet the requirements. And the requirements do vary depending on the type of industry you're in. Like if you're in a service industry, you've got to have, as an example, within the last 3 years, your average cannot be more than $10 million in revenue a year. And also you cannot have more than 100 employees. Like that's for services as an example. But it does vary based on industry. But there's a lot of opportunities that we have collaborating. We do a lot of outreach in the community as well too, connecting prime contractors with subcontractors and small and startups to be able to get their foot in the door in state contracting.
Thank you so much. And so you mentioned, there's a lot of ongoing efforts, and obviously there's so much going on in the innovation space in all different domains and priority areas. So from where you sit and, with the current administration in Maryland, what are some priority areas where the state is eager to be seeding new ideas and to be investing?
So that's a great idea. I think this industry, for the state of Maryland and under leadership of our governor, Governor Moore has identified, a lot of service industries within the state of Maryland that he wants to focus on. That is aerospace, that is quantum computing, that is cybersecurity, some of the major infrastructure that Maryland is very well known for. We want to invest in that for the state. But, it doesn't stop there for us. For us, we are pushing the envelope on a lot of different aspects. IT services. IT is very hot right now, not just cybersecurity, but just services to support the state operations and all the services that we do, but construction as well, too. Like right now, I'm managing between $1.5 million to $2 billion in construction projects across the state, right? That's going to happen. That's going to continue on. And a lot of these they're not federally funded. They're state funded, a lot of these projects. So you'll see that continuing on, regardless of the federal what's going on in the federal world. And one thing I do want to put a plug-in note here is that while the federal government may be changing things, and DEI and equity and inclusion, are bad words. That's not how we do. That's not how we do business in the state. And under the leadership of Governor Moore, he will make sure that we support small, minority, women, veteran-owned businesses, socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses, and startups to support you. You are the backbone. These startups and small business, you're the backbone of our economy. We want you to grow and be and not only grow, but stay in the state of Maryland. So whatever we can do to keep you here, we will do that.
Thank you for that. And I'm glad that got a bit of applause. Okay, as a co-founder of a startup, and my fellow co-founders are also in the room today, we ended up going through a process ourselves of deciding, we're based in DC, do we register in Maryland, Virginia, DC? So can you talk a little bit about how startups that are just starting out, how do they start? The procurement processes, plugging into the various networks and resources available in Maryland can sometimes look a little overwhelming for folks who are doing this for the first time. So what advice do you have for companies and founders? How should they start?
So that's a great question. It's interesting. Secretary Rye and myself, we were just on a call with Maryland Department of Commerce and some of our other agency heads the other day, and that's one question we were sort of pondering. We were pressure testing, like what TEDCO and other segments of the state, what do we need to do to help connect better? And what we're seeing here is we're on a university campus. Most major universities in Maryland have some sort of a startup hub or a capability there, or an incubator where people can learn. But where is the interconnectedness, right? How do we interconnect everyone? What about resources? Are there 3D printers in Towson University, but they're not here, or vice versa, right? How do you know where the resources are? How do you get a mentor? Hey, I need a mentor. I need to learn what I'm doing here. That is something that we are exploring as a state. How can we better connect everyone, whether it's through a platform or something else, to better interconnect everyone, where startups know who each other are, who are the businesses that are looking to support startups, where are the resources across the state, across different university systems, or private businesses or the state that are willing to coordinate with entities such as a startups, right? Because and I put myself in a person just starting out from step zero, right? I want to know, where's the money, right? Where's the funding out there? Is there state funding? Is there county funding? Where are the resources? I want to be able to put a laptop down and work. I need an address just to be able to get mail shipped to. How do I do that? So I know the universities here, and University of Maryland in particular, and many others, do a phenomenal job of supporting startups and coordinating to make sure they're successful. But we at the state, we're looking at that right now, and I think you'll be hearing something from us very soon on how to better connect and do interconnectedness now, to have, from the state of Maryland, from our perspective, how can we support across the board, that overarching continuum of support for startups. We want startups to start in Maryland, stay in Maryland, grow in Maryland. We want you to be subcontractors and grow to be prime contractors. We want you to contribute, have a huge base, an employee base in this state, and also keep the tax revenue here too, a little bit to our advantage. But we want to keep you here. This is a phenomenal state. All the best tech industries in the country are here. You heard about IonQ, the aerospace, Lieutenant Governor spoke of. There is so much industry here. We've got so many military bases and private firms. This is the place to be. We want to support you and make sure you have the resources that you need to prosper.
Thank you. And so one thing I always like to do when speaking with folks in the public sector, and especially who sit at this intersection between policy and practice, is to ask you to share maybe an example or two. You don't have to share specific names if you don't want to, but of folks who have done this well, of folks who have really navigated through the various entities and been able to get RFPs going and have continued to scale and grow in the Maryland environment using some public funding. And if you could share some insights, that'd be amazing.
No, that's great. And I think what we're doing a lot more under this administration, under the governor's leadership, is making sure we have a lot of networking events and collaboration to make sure we connect the right people in the right places. I've talked to prime contractors, subcontractors, and what I learned is a lot of these small startups and small businesses that start to grow. And I've talked to some of these prime contractors. They tell me, listen, I start out with a small contractor, I build them up. They're my competitor now That's what we want, right? We want businesses to grow in this state to end up being competitors to other larger contracts. But I think there's lots of examples of smaller firms trying to get their foot in the door. And what I hear a lot of times is, hey, procurement's very complicated, and I get that. And what we are doing here under this administration, under the governor's leadership, is we're streamlining state procurement operations, try to make it easier for small and minority, veteran, women-owned businesses to be successful in this state. We had a governor's executive order signed in December of last year, streamlining procurement operations and other things. So if you're a minority business, you used to be able to register every year. Every year you had to recertify. Under the governor's executive order in December, it's now a 3-year certification, right? You don't have to certify every year anymore. Just a small thing that we're doing. I mean, that's one of many examples that we're doing. We're also, you've heard of procurements taking months and months and months, sometimes year plus. Under the governor's executive order, the clock for a procurement now will be 120 days. So that is under the governor's leadership here, we are innovating, we are streamlining procurement operations, and just as an example, last week we passed a bill where small businesses normally have a net 30. That means you bill, we'll pay you within 30 days. We recognize and realize that small businesses, startups like yours, you don't have a lot of money. You're cash strapped. You don't have a lot of money to leverage lines of credit. So we will now pay you within 15 days instead of 30 days to make sure you get the money quickly. So a lot of these initiatives that we're doing to streamline our operations, to make it easier for you to do business with the state and easier for you to get paid and be successful here. Because I can tell you right now, $8+ billion, we want that money to go to you as much as possible. I'm building a brand new Supreme Court for the state of Maryland. Next week, I'm dropping a solicitation to build a new Supreme Court. It will be the only Supreme Court in the country under construction when it goes into construction this year. It has a 40% MBE goal on it. It has a 10% veteran-owned business goal on it. That is pushing the envelope to really make sure that these prime contractors, the big guys, national firms that are bidding on this, they have to pick small local firms in Maryland to work on these projects, whether it's networking, whether it's concrete, drywall, whatever it is for that project, they have to use our Maryland-based firms for 40% of those contracts. So these are the things we're doing to innovate, to try and get you guys more engaged. But there's lots and lots of stories right here that small startups starting out in the state and starting to build up. What I hear and what I encourage you to do is to give back. As you start to grow, what I love to hear is we're giving back. I'm giving back to other startups, helping them to be successful. And another thing in the governor's executive order that we are looking at here in December that he signed was a mentor protege program. Be able to have mentors look at small startups, to have that mentorship to build them up. That's what they need. We had a cabinet meeting with the governor. One of our first cabinet meetings was at Towson University at their incubator program there. We got to sit down and meet with all the startups that are there in the old National Guard building that they had there. And, there was one innovator there that was creating EV charging stations, right? Building them in Maryland. We didn't know that. I wonder if Pepco and BG&E knew that this guy was building these firms, building this equipment here that's in Maryland that we can support. So these are things we're doing across the state to support businesses like yours be successful.
Thank you. That's really exciting. And I have to say, when we embarked on our entrepreneurship journey, we heard from so many folks, look at Maryland. Maryland has so many opportunities. And so I guess that leads me to my final question as in my role as moderator before I open it up to folks in the audience. Surely there are people here who are business owners and founders who might want to ask the secretary a question. But, what is the front door that we should be utilizing to get in touch, to build those relationships, to better understand the RFP and the contracting processes, such that everything kind of gets plugged in the right place and on the right timeline?
No, it's a great question. I think there's a few different avenues. We have an Office of State Procurement. We've got an outreach unit there that really collaborates closely with the public and with organizations such as yours, as you're starting out, to guide you through the process and build you up. We also have the Maryland Department of Commerce as well, that sort of has grants that are available, or could leverage those to be able to provide some grants. And we've got TEDCO and others in the state that really help out with that, to provide you, to build you up. But really, you want to coordinate and go to dgs.maryland.gov, our website, register on Email and Marketplace Advantage. On there, you'll get all types of notifications for solicitations, for networking events, for other things to guide you through the process when it comes to procurement. On there, there's lots of forms and to understand the templates, how to do business with the state. I can tell you, when I came on board as secretary, an RFP template was like 115 pages without a scope of work. That was without a scope of work, before you put a scope of work in. When you put a scope of work in, I've seen RFPs that are like a ream of paper, like 500 pages. How can businesses like yours, right, with all the requirements that are read through that and bid on a contract like that, right? So we've streamlined that down. We've gone from 115 pages to like 35 pages or 40 pages, right? We've streamlined our methodologies to make it easier for it to go through. We're also looking at insurance requirements, looking at bonding requirements that can be obstacles for you to enter into contracts. So we're looking at different avenues, and going to our website, collaborating there. Is the best avenue. I'm here to help facilitate, to help things. I can help get things unstuck, and I tell people too, hey, listen, even though I'm at General Services here, I can also help facilitate other conversations in other agencies. A lot of people I talked to today said, hey, I have this and I have that. I said, well, you need to talk to Commerce. You need to talk to Labor. You need to talk to Health, right? But I can help facilitate those conversations. You can talk to those agencies.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And I just want to thank the Secretary so much for your energy and your openness to engage with us. So yeah, any folks in the audience have questions?
Yeah, so my question is about the sixth generation plane. Lockheed Martin, which is a Maryland headquartered firm, has built the fifth generation plane since 2004 for our country. First one, very proud of it. And they've built even the other ones that's, I think, so now, as you know, Boeing has got the sixth generation plane, unfortunately, F-47 after Trump's 47th presidential thing, so whatever it is. So the Lockheed Martin has been doing so much, then why is that Boeing got that contract? Was it because of stocks? And how because you said aerospace and was the biggest thing that Westmore has. So what is he doing to get that contract back into Lockheed's hand instead of going into Boeing? Just because I think the stock went down, that doesn't really, what do you think he can do with that,
So I will tell you that's a very tough question for me because, number one, that's out of my purview, okay? But no, it's a great question, and I'll answer it. And I'll tell you, that's a federal contract. So that goes through the federal contract, right? So the feds will contract out, and they have their own procurement process. My equivalent in the federal government is GSA, right? GSA helps facilitate and do procurement. But I think it's a really good question, and because that question leads into outside of state government, how is the governor looking to support businesses like that and others? And if you see the governor, our governor is a huge champion of businesses like yours, not just doing business with state of Maryland, but doing businesses with the federal government and with each other, right? As an example, the governor fought very hard to bring the FBI here to Maryland, right? You will also see the governor will fight very hard to support IonQ, to support Lockheed Martin, to support Maryland-based businesses so they can be successful and they can get these type of large contracts. A lot of these contracts, whether it's infrastructure, you're talking about roads and bridges from the federal government, you're talking about aerospace, those are huge, multi-million-dollar contracts or billion-dollar contracts that mean jobs. Not just jobs here, but sustainable jobs. And our governor, I can tell you, is committed to working with the CEOs of these companies to make sure they stay in Maryland and grow in Maryland, and they have the capability that they have to be successful here. And I know our governor is very close to our congressional delegation, working very closely with them on the federal side to support to make sure that all these contracts and entities stay in Maryland, whether it's state agencies, whether it's state contracts in the private sector, they all stay in Maryland and facilitates everything in Maryland.
Asif, thanks for your energy. I can see your commitment energy is like so amazing. But one quick question. I'm from Virginia. Are we eligible to apply for contract in Maryland?
Yes, great question. You have to register in the state of Maryland to do business in the state of Maryland, and you've got to go through the process. So if you want to be a small business, my agency will register you as a small business. If you want to be a minority business, which I strongly encourage you to do if you qualify, that will be through Maryland Department of Transportation. You coordinate with them to get your MBE certification, and we're also going to streamline that process as well. But yes, you absolutely can. You could be based in an international company. You could be based in a different state, but you've got to register to do business in the state of Maryland, and once you do that, then you can apply.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Secretary Atif. Thank you. I think some of the things that you mentioned are very commendable, right? Some of the things I didn't even know. I'd been in the state forever. Mm-hmm. Is there a clear roadmap, like if we want to do business with the state or the federal government, generally we tend to ask friends and the colleagues to get into any sort of program, right? I haven't been able to really find a place which is more self-servicing, where you could go and easily get a roadmap. It's so difficult to navigate the waters. What would you recommend to any founder or entrepreneur around the area to say, okay, this is where you go and start. It's a self-servicing portal, makes things easier for you. Thank you.
Great question and phenomenal question. And I'll tell you why. Stay tuned. We're going to be updating our website with a lot of capability to say, I'm a small business, large business, minority business, whatever. I want to do business with the state. What do I need to do? And we'll be updating our website. So stay tuned for that. We'll be updating our website and coordinating on that very closely. We have a lot of information already, but we're going to make it easier to use. And we're going to publicize that to make sure you guys know how to do business in the state, how to coordinate and collaborate, but also what else do you need to do, right? I would love to be able to make sure that we do from zero to success, right? That means I want to set up a business. Okay, you've got to register in Maryland. Register your business, period. To be an LLC or an INC. You got to open a bank account. You've got to do all those things. And I know that there are some businesses that I personally had my staff handhold through the process, put them through. And the Baltimore City's got an incubator program for people that don't have a lot of background in business, want to start one. We help facilitate those conversations to connect you with the right people to be able to do that. But it's a great question. I think that is something that's lacking in across the country in public contracting, and we are going to make it easier in the state of Maryland to do business with us, and that's something we're working on right now.
This is more of a question of the current federal government and what's happening in the health sector. As you know, Montgomery County is number 3 in the United States for innovation, particularly biomedical sciences. And I happen to be a physician, and we have patents. But what I want to know is, what are you doing? Because RFK has already announced, and he made it, and the federal government has already said, that any drug which is sold in the United States has to be made in the United States. So what are you doing to attract or make it more incentivized for smaller companies like ourselves and other companies to come in and have that happen?
So another great question. Now, tying with what I said earlier, and you've heard it before from Lieutenant Governor, sort of the 270 corridor being like the biotech capital. We want to maintain that, and we want that to grow. And I know our governor is committed to making sure that we've got programs and opportunities, whether it's grants or other opportunities there, to connect businesses to be able to grow and stay in the state of Maryland. So I know there's lots of challenges. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we recognize that with the federal government, whether it's the FDA or HHS and others. And I think it's a very challenging environment right now because there's a lot of misinformation, but the information is changing constantly, right? And there seems to be no rhyme and reason associated with that, which can be very frustrating. The one thing that you can count on is this governor and this administration to be steadfast in our support. You will see that what we say, we mean it. We will not switch back and wish-wash what we're saying. When we say we're committed to keeping businesses in here, we mean it. We do it, we'll coordinate. And we are coordinating very closely. I think we're keeping a very close eye on what the government's saying when it comes to whether supporting vaccination programs or healthcare or Medicaid or others. So I think we're monitoring that very closely. But we are collaborating very closely to make sure that businesses like yours and others in this biotech corridor are fully supported and engaged. You'll see the governor, he's out there and about. He's visiting firms. He's going there to see what's happening for himself, to make sure that everybody recognizes that they have his support. And he will continue to support you guys going forward.
On that note, Secretary Chaudhry, thank you so much for your candor, your openness, and willingness to engage and answer questions and encourage us all to utilize all the resources available to us. And to everyone here, don't be afraid to explore public sector partnerships. There's support, opportunity, and clearly a very real appetite here in the state of Maryland. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.